I'm Zaire Tayeb.
And I'm Molly Stitt.
And thank you for joining us on this
Word to the Wildcat podcast.
On this cold day, we will be discussing the foundations of leadership.
We would like to introduce today's guest from BSU, Nate McMillion.
What's going on, everybody? Nate McMillion here, he, him, his pronouns. I am this year's vice president for the Black Student Union. I've had the opportunity to serve as president before. I've also been central student trustee, and I work as a student initiatives coordinator outside of the Diversity and Equity Center.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Nate. Can you talk about BSU, the importance of BSU, and kind of talk about who's on the board currently for this school year?
Yeah, so BSU is just the Black Student Union that's on campus. I would say when we discuss the importance of it, it's really just about giving anyone who identifies as Black, African American, African in America, we just want to give you a safe space and a community on campus that you can feel at home in. We understand what being Black and attending a PWI can mean. We understand the challenges that can present. So we just try to help as many of us navigate that and create that safe space for us as much as we possibly can. For this year, I'm pretty excited about our board, especially coming off of last year with us being in a pandemic. Almost everything that we did had to be done virtually. So going into this year, we have Paige, who is our president, also current student trustee for Central as well. Myself at VP. I would say for our positions, it's more so the leadership positions on the board. There, as far as being the front facing, you're probably going to see us at a lot of events that BSU is at, involved in a lot of events that BSU is at, and try to get our members there as much as we can. We also have Solomon, who is our ESC representative, who gets us connected to other ESC orgs on campus. We have Peyton, who's our programmer. She takes care of our events. She watches over our social media a little bit as well, and also helps us come up with activities and stuff to do in the general meetings. Nathan, who's our treasurer, taking care of our finances, and then we have Gannett, who keeps us in line as our secretary, making sure we are staying according to our word and what we say week after week. So that would be our board.
Thank you for sharing that. So going back to BSU, can you talk about the significance and the importance of BSU on campus and what it means to be, and like kind of the struggles of being Black in Ellensburg, and how important that community is? Because as someone who is Black in Ellensburg, I can tell you firsthand it's not an easy thing, especially if you come from a diverse setting and you move here to where it's like majority white campus. So can you talk about the importance of that?
No, for real, because I think a lot of our students, I know for myself and a lot of people I know, are coming from the west side of Washington, like Seattle, Tacoma, different places like that, to where you are guaranteed to see a bevy of individuals, all types of colors, shapes, and sizes, things like that. And you come out here to Ellensburg, and it's rural town. As soon as you get off the exit, you're like, oh, this is interesting. And I'll be honest, I haven't been surrounded by as much farmland as Ellensburg in my entire life. So that was also kind of just like a wake-up call. I'm assuming not just for myself, but for most Black individuals coming into the town. But with that being said, we have faculty on campus, we have alumni, Black students who have come and graduated from here that have figured out the different pockets, places, ways to navigate this town, ways to navigate this campus, and they share that with us. They continue to leave those notes and those trinkets within our community. So it's our job really as BSU to make sure we're giving that information out to as many individuals as we possibly can. And in that same vein, we know that Ellensburg can be, at least optic-wise, it can look like I don't really know where I can fit in around here. I don't really know where I can, like, where's my hangout spots at, where I can kind of kick it at. Well, BSU, we just want to give you that space, so you don't have to look anymore. You got us, and we're always going to be here.
So circling back to when you use PWI, what does that refer to?
Yeah, so PWI is just referring to, or it just means predominantly white institution. So any university or any school that essentially where the majority population is white, predominantly white institution there. I think you are hard-pressed to not find hundreds of them in any state across this country.
Yeah.
So, on the topic of leadership, can you talk about or discuss why it's important to have leadership within the Black community on campus and the importance of Black leadership? Because I feel like when talking about leadership, it's not very inclusive a lot of the times to the Black community. So, can you talk about the importance of that?
Yeah, it's crucial because when I think Central is so gung-ho about recruiting, and getting students here, but it's like, once you get them here, well, what are we doing to keep them? And so, especially if you're talking about Black leadership, when we are getting our Black students here, our Black men, our Black women, when they're arriving here on campus, are they seeing themselves? Are they seeing representation of themselves? Are they seeing, do they feel that they're being heard in any type of challenges that they are being presented with or anything like that? So when kind of referring back to that PWI word, you really, as a Black student, you're trying to figure out how to navigate that the best you can. And a lot of us, I would say, well, just speaking for myself there, kind of come from an environment to where, hey, you need to figure it out on your own. And you're kind of taught that to where it's like, whether it be that get it out the mud mentality or anything like that. But it's like, no, you got to figure it out. But that's not reality. It's just, if we're here and we have leaders on campus who have been through the process, who have gotten to their senior year, who are graduated, alumni, whatever the case may be, you now have an opportunity to turn around and make sure everyone else can walk that same path and get to that same finish line as you. For me, that's my main reason as far as being on the BSU board. I know what I had to do as far as just getting to my senior year and getting to graduation coming up. And I was like, I don't want anyone else that looks like me to have to run through those same walls if they don't have to, because that's just unnecessary. And people's like, well, you learn from that. Not everybody has to learn the same lesson, especially if I already learned it. Why he got to go through the same thing,
I think that you bring like a very valid point to the table when you talk about the experience of Black people having to deal with the whole figure it out on your own or you just don't make it mentality, because that's what it's kind of been for me going to college here as well. I think Central prides itself, as you said, on being a very diverse school, but that diversity doesn't mean much or prove anything if there's not a lot of resources for Black students to use or to have on campus to help guide them through the process. I think that the mentality of just figure it out or you don't make it is very toxic, and that's a lot of the reasons why people can get easily discouraged, because that's no way to learn. I personally shut down if that's the only option I'm given. So I think that's something that definitely needs to change. Mm-hmm. I also think that it's great that we have a solid BSU organization on campus that can really help and be that resource to Black students on campus, because without BSU, it'd be kind of a scary place here, I'm not gonna lie.
Y'all were talking a bit about being a senior and also being in BSU. What opportunities in BSU do you get as a senior? Yeah,
I would say as seniors, first and foremost, congratulations, because you're coming around to the home stretch. The finish line is in view, so that in of itself is worthy to be praised upon. But as far as getting involved with BSU, really, like I was saying earlier, it's just in order to get to the senior point, in order to graduate, you had to figure out what your process was. You had to navigate your path. You had to figure out what works for me while I'm in school, what isn't working for me, whether that be study habits, faculty to talk to, different places, resources on campus, whatever that is. You now have that wealth of knowledge.
So when talking about BSU, I think it's important to direct or connect incoming students to get involved or to join BSU for those interested, because I think it's pretty much a universal experience for Black incoming students to kind of search their school and see if there's an available BSU club, just to make sure there's community, especially if it's at a PWI. I know a lot of people who have done that, including myself. So can you talk about those who may not know that and how to get connected to BSU? Yeah,
I would say if you have an IG or an Instagram, the best way from there is definitely to give us a follow at CWU_BSU. We post all of our meeting times, get posted on there. Any events that we may either be putting on or participating in gets put up there. If you are on the Ellensburg campus and you're not sure, let's say you may not have social media and you're just not sure where exactly to go, I would highly encourage you to go down to Black Hall. Room 101 is the Diversity and Equity Center. Within that office, we have the ESC advisor who can get you connected with not just BSU, but with any number of ESC organizations on campus, all of them identity-based. Or if not there, I would also recommend coming up and checking out Slice, who I know is in charge and over clubs, who can also get you connected with some of the clubs on campus as well. So if the social media route doesn't work, but you're still on campus, those are the two offices I would say. If you can get to there, they can point you in the right direction.
So what are some opportunities for students who want to join or get involved with BSU?
Yeah, so for us right now, it's in this quarter, it's really a lot of community building and just getting everybody kind of recognized and seen on campus to let people know it's like, hey, you're not here dolo, you're not here, by yourself. You got this, you have a community. Winter quarter, we get jumping pretty much. We have a program that we always participate in and sometimes either help facilitate and bring on with the Martin Luther King celebration. And for Black History Month, we've had the opportunity to, I think it was 3 years ago, we started a panel with the museum on campus about being Black in Ellensburg, and it was a community conversation. We had people from both the school and the town of Ellensburg come. But now, thankfully, we've been able to grow that into just being Black in Washington. And last year, even though it was virtual, we had students participate from several other schools here in Washington who got to participate in a Zoom session, in that conversation, in that panel. We even had, even though he wasn't officially our president, Dr. Walpart actually came to the Being Black in Washington last year, and I thought that was super, super dope. So we have that we put on every year, especially in Black History Month. There's always something we're doing on this campus. And for any Black individuals who may want to learn some more about their history, they say the best way you can learn something is by teaching it. So really with the presentations and stuff that we're going to be putting on, anyone who wants to get involved with that, we highly encourage you to do so. As far as some of the more fun things, we do every single year we put on Central's Biggest Talent Show. Unfortunately, last year, just with the pandemic being what it was, we weren't able to do it, but we are definitely bringing back Showtime at Central this year. It is a Traditions Keeper event for the school. It's one of those, the last time we did it, we rented out the music hall. We packed it out. It was completely sold out. It had an awesome show. It's paying homage to Showtime at the Apollo, for those who know about it, and we just invite all the students and we have a good time. Performances are usually good. If they're bad, then it's still a good time for everybody because you knew what you signed up for. But no, I would say for that's probably some of the ways you can get involved. And looking ahead to spring, there's going to be a few things that we're going to try to start for the very first time going into spring quarter there. I can't give away too much, though.
So, Nate, you mentioned that you were previously a member of the Board of Trustees last year. What was that like, just being in that space, especially as a Black man? How was that?
Yeah, I would say being student trustee last year was about 5 months of imposter syndrome, followed by some really, really good dialogue and conversations for my last quarter there. To be completely honest, when I had found out I had gotten student trustee, I really didn't believe it because I was like, I tell people all the time, I know the man in the mirror. So when I get rewarded things or opportunities come, it's just one of those I try to be as humble as I can. But the first couple meetings, I was actually kind of blessed in the fact that since last year was just the pandemic, most of the meetings were all virtual. And I can't tell y'all how many times I had to Google words that were being used in conversations in the midst of the Board of Trustees meeting. Now, thankfully, it's virtual, so it's nothing just to open up a second tab, quick Google search, and then we're good. But and so that's really where a lot of the imposter syndrome kind of set in because it was like, I don't really know what I'm doing here. But thankfully, shout out to Linda Schottler, who is our board secretary. She kept insisting, it's like, Nate, you don't have to be anybody but yourself. We got you here because we know you care about the students. We know you love our university. We truly just want to hear what is the student's perspective. And after about, like I said, it took me maybe first couple meetings, and then I started getting just a lot more comfortable. I wasn't, you can ask any of the board members, I wasn't one who felt the need to speak on everything, but especially when it came to something that our students were doing, like for instance, coming into this year, when we were coming back into in-person, and what were some of the protocols on that, where I got to participate in those conversations. I had the opportunity to be a part of the one of the search teams that brought in Dr. Walpart, so I got to interview him before he was our president. So it was a really awesome opportunity, and in that same vein, I am thankful a whole lot for Robert Nelson, who was also on the board, another black man who was on the board, and it was plenty of times to where I, as a student, maybe didn't feel that I had either like the power or the agency to really speak up. He was able to step in for me and be like, hey, we're not doing this. And then him and I got to have a conversation afterwards where he would 9 times out of 10 confirm what I was thinking or validate what I was feeling in that moment. So definitely it was, like I said, a lot of times I was just in those meetings like, what am I doing here? But by the end of it, it was an awesome experience. It was amazing. I would love to do it again should I ever get the opportunity. The board is awesome. And it was something that I had to learn super, super quick, is that you can't be intimidated by titles. Because once I saw that I was going to be the student trustee, I started looking at the other board members, and then you see CEO, CFO, owner of this company, this Fortune 5, and you're like, all right, I got about a couple hundred in the bank, maybe. So it's one of those things. It's like, all right, what if, I'm feeling in those moments, are you really going to take my opinion, my thoughts seriously? Are they going to be validated? But everyone on the board, they didn't care about their titles. They didn't care. They truly wanted to learn. They truly wanted to know what was going on with the students. So anytime I spoke, they were all ears, which for me was shocking. I'll be honest.
Yeah, I'm really happy to hear that they kind of threw away those titles and it was just a whole bunch of people just wanting to work together. You were talking a bit about feelings of not feeling comfortable, and you mentioned imposter syndrome. So could you talk a bit more about that and what that means? Yeah,
so essentially, I would say for myself is a lot of times when I'm in situations, let's say, especially with student trustee, I really didn't feel like I deserved to be there. And not necessarily, if not deserved, maybe not necessarily qualified enough to be there. For me, I was a non-trad student. I know what my current GPA is once I finish graduating here. We ain't bragging about it, but we got a degree. So it's just like the combination of those different things plus just my own personal history is just, am I qualified enough to participate in these conversations that have to do with the entire institution? And not just the entire institution of Central, but us in relation to UW or Western or a number of Washington institutions there. And it's like now, like in my first couple of conversations I had with Linda, she was really presenting that scope to me, and it was intimidating at first. I'm not going to hold you, because you're realizing, she let me know that you aren't necessarily just representing the students here at Central Washington. You are trying to keep in mind and create the best situation for the students in the state of Washington, just all college students in general. So with that in mind, there's sometimes, and thankfully, shout out to Mikkel, who was our ASCW president when I was student trustee. There were times him and I maybe couldn't agree on something, or maybe we felt that there were two different paths that could solve the same problem there. But even in the midst of that, we were still willing to work together to where I never felt that I was making a decision that would bring any harm to Central students. And Mikkel never felt that either at any point in time that we were like coming up with things, initiatives, or things like that. So it was really just a lot of times just kind of talking with myself, like, am I really qualified to be in this position? And I'll be honest with you, I'll probably be dealing with those type of feelings long until my 30s and 40s. So, but it's life. So.
So Nate, can you talk a little bit about the leadership opportunities that you have taken, just as an incoming freshman to senior today?
Yeah, so it's funny because a lot of my leadership opportunities, and I thank God for this, that they kind of just, at least the opportunity itself kind of just landed in front of me. It wasn't a lot I had to really go searching hard for. My first year, I showed up here a little bit late. I started winter quarter instead of fall. So honestly, my first question as soon as I got on campus was, where are the black people? Like, I need to find us. Thankfully, we had a couple members from BSU at the time. I got connected to them in the circ, and it was just wanting to be involved. I would say that was really what spawned most of our, actually started most of my leadership journey, is just wanting to be involved and wanting to help out. So I got started volunteering at BSU, just helping out at different events, tabling, different things like that. And I had the opportunity to run for a board position, and I figured I would take it. And what kind of spawned that was, we had a situation that was my freshman year here, to where there was a incident involving police brutality up at Club 301. And what ended up happening is that the EPD chief reached out to Central and the ESC organizations as far as trying to have a conversation as far pretty much putting the context of the whole situation, everything that helped out and that happened with that, as well as moving forward what we all could do. I was invited along with the current ESC rep of BSU to be a part of that conversation, and once we had gotten there, I started realizing that I was one of the more vocal people in the room. Now, I'll be honest, that probably was just because of how my own personal feelings towards police officers there. So I'll be transparent about that. But in the midst of that, the questions that I was still asking, once you start seeing validation, the head nods, the mm-hms coming from across the table, you're like, oh, all right, so I'm kind of on to something here. I would say my biggest moment that let me know that, no, your voice isn't just meant for you, was my sophomore year. I was already on the board with ESC, or with BSU as their ESC representative, and it was our very first time doing Being Black in Ellensburg. So this was the community conversation day, and the way it was set up, it was at the Wellington Event Center. All the black students are sitting at the table inside, and everyone who is not identifying as a student is kind of sitting on chairs surrounding that. So a conversation comes up as far as like, what would you like to do, or what would you like to see happen going forward? Now, I don't know who all is in the room, so when I'm asked the question, I'm thinking I can just pop off. It's nothing. So I go from there. I was like, well, we had a conversation with the then Central president at the time, plus the police chief, as far as like, hey, these initiatives are going to start happening on campus. These relations are going to start getting built. We were supposed to start seeing these community activities start happening. We haven't seen any of that. What's going on? Are we just saying stuff? Like, I'm starting to go in. And then as I finish, our moderator at the time was like, oh, well, I know the perfect person to answer that. President Galdino and EPD Chief Ken Wade. Would you like to answer these questions? So I'm going off about both these people. Whole time they're sitting there in the room and I don't even know it. I don't think that I had a more cracked face moment probably since I've been in school, but that it was crazy for me. But in the midst of that, I saw, and this is my own personal enjoyment, I saw how uncomfortable just the truth was making them in that moment, because it's just like, you can't just say we're going to do something and leave it at that, because no, people remember, people will hold you accountable, and if we're going to be about something, let's actually be about it. And it was really from that point going forward that I was like, okay, my voice isn't just meant for myself. I can actually use this voice as an advocate for other people. What cemented it for me, I had the opportunity to be a part of the cross-cultural leadership program my sophomore year as well. Outside of what was the CELCE, now Slice, shout out to Slice. But we went down to New Orleans, and I had a chance to, for a week there, we started doing some research and talking with the community members about the infrastructure, how it was being rebuilt post-Katrina, what that looked like. And at the end of the week, we had the chance to go and talk with the first African-American woman mayor of the city of New Orleans. that's an experience I will never forget. We had a chance to take pictures with her. We got to talk to her about her community. But the biggest thing for her is that she let me know is that perspective is one of the most important things anytime you talk about leadership. The example that she gave us was that so many people in the town may be thinking like, oh, this pothole, why is this pothole here? I'm tired of running into this thing. This pothole been here for the last year. What are we doing? So they bring the pothole complaint to the mayor, but they don't know what the mayor knows. The whole time, the mayor has the information that, hey, there was a provision or a bill that was put in place 6-7 years ago that only allocates funding to this sector or this section of the city, this section of the city, this. So we can't get funding to come fix this pothole because of a bill that I'm still trying to get taken out of office, taken out of essentially commission that was put in 5-6 years ago. But the person who just sees the pothole has no knowledge of that. They don't know what's going on. So that let me know that anytime you're in that position of leadership, you have to be able to take a step back and look at everything objectively. It's like, yes, you may have the one person who's talking like, we need to solve this, we need to do this, but it's like, okay, if we just hop into that, what's that going to look like? Or why is it we haven't done it yet? Is there a reason? Is there something preventing us from doing it? So I would say those two moments really kind of just cemented for me is like, all right, your voice isn't just for your own, and always make sure you're looking at the larger picture when it comes to situations. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Nate. I think that's just really valuable information, and I think you sharing the experience of you not knowing that they were in the room was funny, but it also helps, everyone redirect their focus to the issues at hand and how, you have to go further than just, okay, sending an email out and saying we're going to do these things or we're going to have these trainings or we're going to have these talks, and then it just stops at the talks and there's no, actions put into place, because I think talking is a lot of the times can be a waste of time, because after that, people just vent their frustrations and then the same people go home and with no intention of changing and just, we talked about it. So I think that's a very valid point, and I think that happens quite often in Ellensburg, especially to the Black community within Ellensburg. I've had my own experiences of, dealing with some of the on and off campus police and, them not being held accountable to some of their actions, until, emails and other people got involved, and then it was like, we'll do better, and then, there was no change whatsoever. So I think that's a very important topic as well.
I wanted to say that I also think I love what you said, Zaire, and also what you said, Nate, and you also mentioned about seeing the discomfort on their face. And I think that's actually very important to be able to grow and to actually develop and make these changes, because how can we move forward without making ourselves uncomfortable, confronting bias, confronting the things that have been passed down to us from society, things that aren't true. And so it's good when people are uncomfortable, because that means that they're finally acknowledging that something isn't right. And so make sure to sit in that discomfort. Sit in it.
Sometimes it can feel that they're acknowledging, because I've witnessed some people that, have been blatantly uncomfortable and then nothing changed. I also think that how I see it is that, being Black in Ellensburg alone, there's a lot of situations where, Black people are uncomfortable on the daily, so I really don't care to cater to other people being uncomfortable. I just care to see their words put into action. I think, we have to deal with that every day. So
no, to that point, Zaire, that was probably the conversation I was having the most last year. Because with everything that had happened just in 2020, take away the pandemic, but everything that happened with, and I don't need to say the names, we all know because I'm not going to get into that, but it was so many people who was like, oh, we need to talk about this, we need to talk about this. And I'm like, what are we talking about anymore? You see it. Like, it's blatant and it's in front of you. And I legit started getting angry at people whenever they were like, oh, well, let's have this conversation.
Same.
What are we talking about now? Like, you're now asking me to have a conversation. Hey, are we sure the sky is blue, when I'm walking out every day and seeing it?
I feel like, having a conversation is like the easy way out a lot of time. And I feel like it's people's false sense of like holding certain people accountable. But what are we talking about? Like, if and then there was talks of like more training being done to like police officers, and it's like, I mean, what are we training you to do? Not to racially profile and shoot someone?
Yeah,
I don't understand what the training or like what we're talking about over and over again. I just feel like I just feel like it's just, a lot of BS going on there. But I mean, these are all valid topics that I feel like get swept under the rug a lot of times, or it just stops at a conversation. So, going forward, I would like to see a lot of the things being brought to the school's attention and the president's attention to be actually put into action instead of just redundant talks.
And I'll say for me, especially with the talking point, my thing was, it's not that all the conversations are bad, it's just you wanting to have the conversation with the black individual versus not wanting to have the conversation with the aunt or uncle that you never speak to on holidays, at family gatherings, or that family member that keeps making jokes that none of the family laughs at. No, go have a conversation with them. Talk to them about why they need to stop doing that. You don't necessarily, to your point, need to have the conversation with a black identifying individual so you can feel better. It's like, oh, I'm not one of the bad ones, am I? Like, that does nothing for me. That doesn't help at all there.
Yeah, that's a discussion I had with a close friend a few days ago. I feel like the conversation is almost always geared towards, black individuals and never geared towards the people that need to be educated and need to educate themselves. It's not, the duty or the job or the requirement of a black person to educate others of what's offensive, what not to say, how to be an ally, how to be a good person. Can you talk about the importance of that and then wrap up? Yeah.
Because I would say, I mean, let's just break it down. I feel like when people want to have those conversations with black people, I feel like it's more self-serving personally versus actually trying to find a solution. And in that same way, I had a conversation with a friend. It's like, yo, let's say you had a traumatic experience, or just, if not traumatic, something that seriously annoyed you and you'd rather not talk about it anymore. But 50 people come to you within a month saying, hey, can you tell me about that? I'm just curious as to what that really was or what's going on with that. You wouldn't be happy. You wouldn't enjoy it. You wouldn't even want to talk about it anymore. You'd probably get pissed off. But it's like, in that same vein, that's literally what was happening with black people all of 2020, where everyone was like, hey, let's have these conversations. Hey, can you talk to me about this? Hey, what's really going on? It's like, Google's free, one. Yeah. And two, there are too many well-educated individuals who have already gone out of their way to do the work and make it as easy as journal prompts. Prime example, Me and White Supremacy. It's a 30-day book, and I want to say it's 4 weeks. You have journal prompts at the end of every week. If you can't journal, I mean, I don't know what to really tell you in that situation, but it's really that simple when it comes to it in a lot of times. So as far as like the importance of educating yourself, if you truly want to be an ally and you truly want to make sure you are looking out for that community, you will do the work on your own without anybody patting you on the back, without anybody giving you kudos as far as like, hey, we appreciate the help. No, you'll just want to be a good person and a good individual. Like, quoting Me and White Supremacy again, she always talks about being a good ancestor. That's the standard we're trying to set here, because we already know what previous ancestors were, and I don't need to get into that. So at this point going forward, it's like, what are we doing to actually be a good ancestor going forward? So that's how I would say it is as important as it is for everyone to do the work on their own there.
I think that's, those are great points. I always say that it's not like black people are fighting or advocating for anything new. It's been the same thing for decades, the civil rights movement. Like, it's not any, police brutality, we were advocating for that 50 years ago. So I feel like like I said, it's up to the person to educate themselves. There's so many books, documentaries, interviews, people that you can still talk to today.
Thanks for tuning in, Wildcats, on our 4th episode. Streaming is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Google Podcasts, and 88.1 The Berg.
Make sure to tune in next quarter to hear about all the topics we will be discussing.
Thank you so much, Nate, for coming in and sharing your past with leadership and all of the great things BSU is doing.
Thank you.
Appreciate y'all having me.